the first speaker, by the way.
Huh?
You're the first speaker.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. My notes here.
I still have the Cloudflare PDF.
Oh, perfect. Good.
At least I saw it in that folder the last time I looked at it, so let me double check and make sure it's still there.
Yep. Thank you. Make sure I have everything here.
I don't know if you want to
Check,
try.
check. Yeah.
This is the room mic. This is the stream mic.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to clip the stream mic on us. I don't know. We can try it. Do you want to do it or no?
I can do it. Yeah.
I mean, not now, because I'll put it on myself.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal.
We'll see how it goes.
And that way, at least the folks
Actually,
sort of.
I think it'll be okay without it. Let's
Okay.
just leave it.
It is pretty sensitive. I didn't do it last time, and people were able to hear me.
Yeah, I have the volume boosted above 100%, so I have like artificial.
Does it pick up people are tapping?
Yeah,
A little.
It's not too bad. Like the audio sounds good.
Cool.
Okay. We don't start the loud kids.
Sounds good.
Yes. That's the bug again. All Python all the time?
Python for the test script, and then what runs on the device is the automation server is This is Python. Okay, okay, sounds good. No, it's bespoke software, so it's the same. Which is nice, because we have some custom requirements, right, that Appium doesn't support very well, and Appium is a great package. So the one thing it doesn't do well is it doesn't have good integration with other protocols. So it's all, Appium's all in the system. And if it's like that, I'm going to stress. And if I'm doing Szczepanski, and whatever, I would be doing it. I'd be writing like device standards. People are coming in, I guess.
Give them a minute to get situated.
Yeah, I think that's it. You can get a handle on it, or something like that, or like a example of how to open the settings app. Because it's a package that has all the keyboard. And that's how they access the data. It's because it's a Python app, and it's a user. So for using the app itself.
Are there still people out there?
Are there still people out there? No. No? All right. We're good.
I'll get started.
No timer.
I hope not. I did restart the projector when we came in, which has solved problems before. All right. Thanks for coming. You're in the right place for San Diego Python. Appreciate it that you're here. I am David. I'm one of the organizers. There are others, and they are super helpful as well. All right. I want to, before we get started too much, before we dive into the speakers, I want to thank Qualcomm. So Qualcomm has us here, and thanks specifically to the engineering development team. Oh, thank you for taking a photo. I need one of those. Can you? Perfect. Also, a big thanks to Drew and Urivan. They help man the door and everything else Qualcomm related, and that is super important. So also, the pizza was sponsored by Cloudflare, hence the Cloudflare slides. Cloudflare makes networks and websites faster and more secure. They provide awesome tools. Oops, I'm going to switch this into presentation mode somehow, which I'm sure is a thing, and I just need to figure it out. It's in here. Present as slideshow. Hey, we made it. Okay, awesome. They provide awesome tools like web app firewalls and DDoS protection. And R2 is an S3 compatible storage, and they have a bunch more stuff. Cloudflare network is absolutely massive. 95% of internet connected people are within, oops, how did that happen? Okay, 95% of people are within 50 milliseconds of a Cloudflare node. And this makes your site or network fast for people all over the world. Check it out. And the free plan is pretty darn generous. The San Diego Python website uses it as an example, both for R2 and just for CDN. So check it out, and thanks, Cloudflare. All right. Yes, Cloudflare does have some stuff there to stop AI bots from crawling your website too much. They have actually different stuff there. There's even one where you can basically tell them, hey, this costs money, you can pay me. And then they have another one, like you can just block them if you want to. Yeah, they even have like a whole set of user agents that get updated, and whenever a new AI crawler bot gets added to the list, it will automatically get blocked. Or you can rate limit them, whatever you need to do. Cool. Couple announcements. The Saturday meetup is at 10 a.m. on Saturdays. Check the meetup page or check sandiegopython.org. It meets on Discord. The link to Discord is on the website as well. And it's a little bit different than this. There's not a speaker lineup. There's not like dedicated speakers. It meets virtually. It's more of a bring your own project, bring your own thing, discuss what you're working on kind of a meetup. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the holidays are upon us. And as a result, holiday schedule for San Diego Python, because the fourth Thursday of November and December is basically universally bad. So we will be updating things. I think what we're going to do is the third Thursday next month, and then in December, I think we might do something more social and less talks. So just watch the meetup page. It'll be updated in the next couple weeks. I think I talked about the website and the code of conduct. So it's all on sandiegopython.org. Our YouTube channel is linked from there. It's YouTube at San Diego Python. And the meetups are streamed in case you miss them. And also timestamps get added, so you can like zoom through to the exact talk that you forgot about. Just in a project that I've been noodling on, but I haven't built and might have the AI build it for me, is something, we already have an RSS feed of all of our videos. There's already timestamps on all the videos. I might build something that goes back to all the videos and parses out who spoke at what time, so you can very quickly like navigate between all of them. I think that'd be really cool. I talked about the Discord, which is on there. Notably, there's channels for our Discord. There's a jobs channel, web dev, machine learning. There's the general channel in there. There's a bunch of stuff like that. If you want to post a job for your company, much better to post it there than to post it here, probably. Although you can, if you have a job and you want to shout it out, that is a thing you can do. But more people will see it if you post it into the jobs channel on Discord. And the other thing is there's one upcoming conference that I wanted to shout out, but there were a couple conferences that happened in the last month. And Jorge, you attended Pi Beach. Did anybody here attend Pi Bay? No, Pi Beach. Do you want to say a word about Pi? You don't have to get up. You can just say it from there if you want to.
Sure. So Pi Beach had its reboot. It was the first year was February 29th, 2020. And for those of us that have good memories, the world shut down 2 weeks later. So this is kind of its reboot. We had some very, very good speakers, especially the keynote speakers talk was up there. And it was just nice to see a lot of folks that were active members of this group, and some that still are roll plans and represent the area. So it's a conference I highly recommend. One day in single track in Santa Monica, which was pretty nice.
Oh, nice. The venue was really nice too. Are the videos up anywhere?
They are on YouTube.
They're on YouTube. Okay, so and you.
About a
week ago. Okay, then they're up on YouTube. Perfect. Okay, that's awesome. Nobody attended Pi Day. Yeah, no worries. And then the upcoming conference. This is before there was Pi Beach. the unofficial San Diego conference was Pi Cascades, which is nowhere near here. But in March of 2026, it will be in Vancouver, British Columbia. And yeah, it's March 21st to 22nd. It's a great conference. It's over the weekend. Just, yeah, great conference. How many people attended Pi Beach, by the way? How many people were there? 175, 200? Yeah, that's probably about how big Pi Cascades is, too. It might be yeah, perfect. Okay, that's awesome. And the most important announcement of all the announcements is that you, too, can become a speaker. On the san diegopython.org website, there is a link to become a speaker, present at the meetup. It is the most important link on the whole website. Very critical. I'm very motivated to line up speakers every month because, first of all, that's what brings people in the door. But second of all, when there's not enough speakers, I have to line up a talk. And so I'm highly motivated to get other people to do this. So if you want to become a speaker, we're always looking for talks, all skill levels, whether it's the problems you had setting up your Python environment, whether it's some advanced NumPy talk, anything in between. These are all great, and I would love for you to present it here at San Diego Python. So please, please, please sign up. You can also sign up for a future meetup, so you don't have to sign up for November. You can say, oh, I'm going to sign up for a later one and stuff like that. So you can do it. 100% survival rate of speakers at San Diego Python. So yeah, awesome. And without further ado, Jorge, you're our first speaker. All right, Jorge Gimeno is going to talk to us about none, Python's brick object. I don't know what brick object means, but it's going to be awesome. And your laptop's already set up, so this is great.
Excellent.
All right, so I think that's the mic. That's the room mic. You don't have to put it on. Should be okay.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. That's okay. Yes, the Wi-Fi is holding. That's always a plus. All right, let me do this first. And am I showing my main screen there? Yes, I am. Okay. Where is slideshow on this? I forget. There it is. All right, so yeah, a brick object, an object that really doesn't do anything and it knows nothing, and it's everywhere. So this particular talk was inspired by something that I call IDD, which is irritation-driven development. That's when something annoys me to the point that I actually break down and put up a pull request to fix it. And it's because we weren't handling a none. All right, so let's talk a little bit about it. So as you can see from earlier, I only have 3 slides. We're going to be doing some of this in the terminal just so that, 1, I can show you, and 2, you can do the same thing when you're trying to figure out how some of these objects behave like none. So what is none? If you have a callable, so a callable is a function or a method or an object that you invoke, by default, it returns none. So if you don't put a return in a function or a method, that's what you get back. Right? So some callables in the standard library do return a none to say, hey, nothing happened here. And so re.match is kind of a famous example, where if you are trying to use a regular string to parse a string and see if you get a match, it returns a none if it doesn't find one. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about recommendations, but that is kind of the more famous example. Another very famous example that trips up new people to the language is the sort method on a list, right? Because everybody expects list.sort to return you a sorted list. It does not. It returns none. You get the list is sorted in place. In other words, the object is mutated. But it returns none. And what's funny is it's documented and people still trip over it. And that is a common question that I get a lot of the time when people are working with lists. You can bind none. So assign it to a variable if you want. I don't know why you would, but you can. Right? Python lets you do that. It has a very limited number of what are called dunder methods. If you don't know what they are, feel free to come up afterwards. I'll talk to you about that. And the last one is kind of the most important one here, and this is how people find out about none, is that it has no instance dictionary. So any attribute that you try to access on none, with the exception of the dunder methods that are explicitly created, generate an attribute error, right? And so typically you are expecting back some other kind of object, like for example, a list, and you get back a none, and you try to reverse the list, for example, and now you get an attribute error, and you're saying, what? Right? So let's take a look at a terminal and see what all this looks like. People can see this okay? I apologize for the colors. I haven't come up with a really good color palette yet. Okay, cool, excellent. So the way that we know that it has no instance dictionary, vars is a built-in in the standard library that tells me, give me the list of your attributes. Oops, I should probably start a console. Okay, Python 3.14 for the win. So let's call vars, vars of none. All right, vars argument must have a dict attribute. What that's saying is you pass me none, and none doesn't have a dunder dict, which is the dictionary, the instance dictionary. That's where objects store all their variables and methods. So it doesn't have one, so there's no way for me to look up anything, right? So we'll get to that in a moment. There are some that you can see. And the way you can do that is through the parent class. And so it does have a parent class, which is creatively enough called none-type. There is one available if you need to do things with it. It's in the types module in the standard library. And, you know, from types, import, none-type, right? And I'm going to do that for convenience because I don't want to type the type of none for the rest of this particular talk. So I'm going to do this in one place, though, because I want to see what is in the inheritance tree, right? So anybody know what MRO stands for? Some people are nodding their heads. It stands for method resolution order. That's a fancy way of saying if I don't know how to find an attribute, I'm going to go up and go look for it, right? So none doesn't have an MRO. None type doesn't have an MRO, but object does, and that's what's in the inheritance tree. So none type, object. Object is what everything inherits from. So it's a weird object in that I can't create an instance of it because there's no callable. It's not callable. There's no dunder call method. Right. By the way, if you didn't know that, that's how you make classes callable. You add a dunder call. And in fact, I believe although it's written in C, that's kind of how meta objects work when you're creating your own custom objects. It creates a custom call and then it replaces it when you get the object back. But I don't have that 100% sure, so somebody can correct me if I don't have that right. I can't assign to none, so it's more than just a name. It's actually a class. If I try to set it to a value, yeah, you can't do that. This is hard-coded, by the way, because you notice it's a syntax error. Normal classes, you can't do that. So what attributes can I access on this? So the way you can check that is you go to none type, and then you ask it for its dictionary. And there you go. You get this mapping proxy is what you get back. It's basically a dictionary with some optimizations. I'll make that look a little bit nicer for us. And if you don't know the pprint module, it is your friend when you're dealing with nested data structures. It stands for pretty print. Okay, that's a little bit easier to read, right? At least for people like me. So it knows if it's true or false, none is always false. And it has some other methods there you can use, but you can't use anything else. That's it. There's no instance dictionary. Also, none is one of the few objects in Python that is a singleton. In other words, it creates the none object when you start the interpreter, and it will never create another. So I can assign none to A, as I said earlier. And then if I go none is A, right, it is true. They're the same thing. So none has a lot of very weird peculiarities. And so because it exists, and it exists for a very good reason, we need to, as developers, when we're working with something, that a callable that might return a none, we need to be able to handle it. So what do I suggest? Well, this isn't really computer science. This is more on the realm of computer strong opinion. None is actually what's called a type of sentinel value, right? It means I have no useful value for you. So a different way to do this, at least in modern Python, is if you can't do the thing, raise an exception. And then you let the caller handle it. And the reason that I would do that is because I want to give the caller some useful context as to what went wrong. Saying that the none type doesn't have this attribute is not a very useful error message. I've seen it often enough because I've written enough buggy code in my career that I've learned to look for that. And so I kind of know like immediately what went wrong. But for people that are learning or for folks that are more junior, I have to give them more context than just I got a none back. Right? So wrapping that none in an exception type where you can pass a message that is more, gives the engineer more diagnostical tools or more diagnostical information is well worth it. If you are writing code and instead of a single thing, a single object, you're returning a collection, and a good alternative is to return an empty collection. I'm returning a list of matches, and if I don't have any matches, then I can return an empty list, and at least the code will still work. Unless they try to index into it, but that's a different problem. Right? People should be defending against that. And so, some of you may be wondering if none causes all this kind of headaches for us. Why would re.match return a none? And so raise your hand if you happen to know what version of Python the regular expression module was introduced, the one that we have today. I actually don't expect anyone to raise their hand because I didn't know this either. So as of today, the version in production is version 3.14. The RE module was introduced into the standard library in Python 1.5. And the other thing that was also introduced in Python 1.5 was exceptions as classes, because before that they were strings. And there was only, I believe, about 18 or 19 exceptions. And I don't know, I didn't have time to dig into this before this talk, if custom exception types were supported, where you can inherit from exception. I don't remember. Well, I don't know. I don't remember because I never used Python 1x of anything. So, and Python does believe in, as the saying goes, oops, no worries, yeah. We'll get that up again for folks that are remote. But Python believes in nothing if it believes in backwards compatibility. We learned that with the Python 2 to 3 split, right? Where print is no longer a keyword and it's still write print space of every time. Muscle memory is kind of hard to lose. So my recommendation again, if you either handle none or wrap it in something more useful if you need to pass more context to the caller, like an exception. But at the very least, you should know what your code is returning. And that's why none is a brick. It knows nothing and can't do much. That's it. Questions? Yes, sir.
How is none different from null and other software languages that PHP or
Okay, I'll repeat that for people that are remote. So how is null different? I mean, how is none different from null, like in PHP or JavaScript or Java? Java, I think, is nil. They all kind of represent the same thing, which is an object that has no value. I think it's more of an implementation detail because in Python, everything is an object. Whereas JavaScript, I don't know if JavaScript has a concept of primitives. I think it does. It's been a long time since I've looked at it. And I don't know about PHP either. I haven't looked at PHP in 12 years. But Java, I know for sure their version of none is a primitive. And so you can't do anything with it. You get it as is, similar to the way we have it here. It,
Everything is either equal to that one object or not equal to that one.
it is actually an object because in C it's implemented as a pi object, right? It is instantiated. You get it at when the interpreter launches, right? So it's an object. Correct. You can't have multiple instances. Correct. You can't have multiple instances of none. There's only one none. There's one other object that kind of does the same thing, and that's ellipsis. But that's a different doc. Yes, David. Can I instantiate the none type? That's a great question. The answer is I don't know. And let's try to find out. My guess is probably not. I'm sure that. Okay. That's unexpected. No, it didn't give me an error. So let me scroll up a little bit. So, oops. Let me go back. It would be the ID of B equals what? They're the same. I got another copy of none. So I think what's happening here, if I can take a guess, is that none type is actually the class, but you get back a none object that you can't do anything with. It's a single thing. Yeah. Yes, sir. Why is none not equal to 0? That's because false is equal to 0, right? It is.
No, it's not. It's not equal to 0, but when 0 is converted to a Boolean in this expression, there are several
Statements that can evaluate two unique statements. None evaluates to false, 0 evaluates to false, and the string evaluates to false.
Yeah.
So it depends what you do when the context of the type that you're using.
Yeah. So Python has this concept of truthiness or falsiness, right? If you don't do an explicit check for an object, none, 0, and empty collections all evaluate to false. So the reason the string evaluates to false is it's an empty string. A string is a collection or a sequence of Unicode endpoints.
the integer does not convert to a Boolean, but the none does in an equality check. When you put a double equal sign, it can convert none to a Boolean immediately.
It does.
Whereas the 0 does not.
It does not because the
You can say if 0, then it will convert it to a Boolean, but it will not. It does the same thing for if none. It will convert it to false.
it doesn't quite convert it for 0. For historical reasons, Booleans are subclasses of integers in Python. So I can actually do 3 plus false, and I'm going to get 3. Because false is actually an integer. It just has a name. Yeah, it has a name. 0 and 1, right? True and false. None doesn't behave that way. None just doesn't compare to anything.
I thought that whenever you have a binary operator, like the double equal sign or the plus sign, it takes either side of it, takes the one on the left, and it tries to coerce the one on the right to the type of the one on the left.
All right.
So basically just wrapping false with the word in.
So that doesn't work. Right? It wouldn't be able to coerce it. Let's try to pass the string through.
You put bool around a string, any string, put bool around string, it's coercing the one.
Correct. That's what bool does. But the only criteria for bool is the string empty or not. So if I go to bool of an empty string,
So when you use double equals, you convert it to bool. If you convert to, anyway, whatever. It's
Yeah.
very coercion. It's changing the type in order to do addition. You can't add a false to a tree without changing the type of false.
It could, based on whatever the parameters were.
Correct. So this is what happens, right? It's add for addition. So this is what Python does under the hood, right?
You can look inside that function, and I'm pretty sure that inside that add function, it's coercing it to dot add, double question mark. Are you in IPython? Are you in Python?
I'm in Python.
You give the source code for add, and
Yeah, this is unexpected actually. I'm gonna have to figure out why this works. But, oh, that's why. So, well, there's another way I could do this. A equals 3, and yeah, correct. Yeah, because it's thinking that 3 dot something is a number, right? Yeah, so that works. It's 4. I already know because I've done this before, but you're right. I mean, this is what happened. And I'll just close my talk with this. First of all, are there any other questions? Is none equal to false? So it's not. Correct. Remember that in this particular case, I'm checking the value. The value of false is 0. The value of none, it doesn't have one. So actually, the way it's implemented is that dunder EQ in none always returns false. It's not equal to anything except itself, which is kind of weird. So yeah, because you're not supposed to be able to compare those two types. Right? Yeah. I'll do this last one because then I'm going to close and I have other speakers. So what if I do a float? So let's set a equals to 3.0. And I actually don't know if this will work because, yeah, it does. Yeah. So the last thing I'll close with is what allowed me to do this deep dive was the Python interactive shell, the REPL. When we are learning, and I'm still learning today after writing Python daily for almost 5 years, a little bit more than that actually, for money. I still go into the shell. When people call me and ask questions, why does things behave this way? I get on a Zoom call with them and I have them open a shell. Try things out. I promise you, you won't break your computer unless you use a hammer to type. All right, that's all I have. Thanks very much. We don't need my laptop or anything else. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect all the things.
I appreciate it. It just fell down.
Yep, it just.
Okay, I just want to make sure because if we like hit it, it's super loud. Oh, Amy, you're all ready. Amy Szczepanski is going to talk to us about NamedTuple versus capital NamedTuple, tuple, sorry, versus data class. I always say tuple, even though for years I know it's tuple, but I learned it as tuple and I still say it wrong. Take it away. Oh, I'll make sure you're all set up. If you have HDMI, that should just, the magic should happen. And then what's on those screens should be what's behind you as well. So if, depending on whether, looks like you're on mirror. Oh yeah, it came up. It came up and then, yeah, okay. So it'll come up here in a second. This just, it's slower. Yep, there it is. Okay, and then you're not on mirror display, so you're on, everything's the same. Is that what you want?
Yes, that's all we need.
All right, you're all set. Take it away.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about two things that have the similarly sounding but differently looking name of NamedTuple and the data class. And so what happened was a few weeks ago at work, I wrote some code that looked kind of like this. Not exactly, but this sort of gives you the gist of it. I was looking at the path that aircraft were traveling along, and I needed to know the number of segments in the path and the distance of the path. And so I wrote this bit of code, and it returned a tuple with the segments and the distance. And then at some point I needed the distance, and so I went and I said, okay, describe my path. And then I went and I said, what's the 1th entry of this tuple? Because I needed the distance. And so this code, I submitted it for code review, and my colleague wrote a comment. He said, I think it would be good to use the NamedTuple to make it clear what the values are when using them elsewhere, because nobody wants to have to remember what's the 0th element of this tuple, what's the 1th element of this tuple, what do these stand for. And in the code that I had actually written, there wasn't just a 0th and a 1th, it was a whole bunch of things. And so it made sense to give them names. But then I was like, do I really want to use a named tuple? Especially, do I want to use the lowercase named tuple? And so if you're not familiar with the lowercase named tuple, it is pretty much what the name of it advertises as. It's a tuple that you give things names. And so in this situation, I wanted to name things segments and distance. And so we have the syntax here that we use for the named tuple. And then I could, instantiate it. And then if I wanted to pull out the distance, I would just say my path description dot distance. So pros and cons here. If we look back at the code that I had written, because I work in an environment with this remarkably fussy CI thing with all this linting and nonsense, I gave type hints because that's what we do. But here my name tuple, I've lost my type hints. Nobody knows that my segments are counted by integers. Nobody knows that my distance is counted by a float. So we have the advantage that we have names, disadvantage that I've lost my type hints. Fortunately, the named tuple with the camel case name lets us use the type hints. And so I can set this up, and it uses the syntax like this, where you say, oh, I'm going to instantiate this. It's going to have these type hints, all this sorts of stuff. And so I can access it the same way by saying path description dot distance in order to get the distance. But now I know that what I'm dealing with, I have my segment counted by integers and my distance counted by a float. But do I have other options? Just because this was suggested in code review doesn't mean that I have to do exactly what I was told. I could use a data class. And you see the syntax is super similar, right? Look at this. So similar. Now with my data class, I have to say it's frozen in order to make it immutable like my tuple. But my syntax is pretty similar. And so you may say, Amy, why would you use one of these versus the other? These look remarkably similar. So we can summarize. We can look at the named tuple, both flavors of it, and the data class. What all of these things have going for them is that they have good performance and very readable code. We know that I'm looking at my segments. We know when I'm looking at my distance. The tuple-flavored ones have all of the benefits of a tuple. You're looking at something that you can iterate over. It's immutable. It turns out to use less memory than the data class. The data class is based on a dict rather than a tuple. Because it has all of the various classy type things to it. It supports inheritance. It also supports strict comparisons. With these tuples, I could take any tuple with 2 elements and compare it, and even if the names are different, as long as the values match, it'll say, yeah, it's good, it's equal. With the data class, I can't go and take a lat lon point and then match it to some other 2 things. It would be like, no, those are different. And so that's something that the data class has going for it. And then, in the right side of my diagram, both my camel case named tuple and my data class, they have type hints and magic methods. And so then, how do you decide what to use? Whichever one makes you happier is the one that you should use. But if you need a tiebreaker from that, if you need your data to behave in a tuple-y way, then use the name tuple. But if you need inheritance or comparisons that respect the names of the fields, then use a data class. And so, does anyone have any questions?
Which option did you follow to comply with the boundary?
I ended up using a data class. And the reason I ended up using a data class was that other places in the same code base had already used a data class, and there was no reason for me to bring in something new when we were already using something.
Were you happy with the data class?
I am very happy with my data class. And I'm going to add more things to it. I wrote a ticket to also add timing to my data class. David.
Does the capital camel case named tuple, does that support custom methods?
I don't know.
But data classes do support custom methods, right?
I believe that they do.
I'm not sure. So this was a legitimate question. I was inquisitive.
What kind of access is it?
But like if you want to write your own method on a data
Your own method?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Both of them? Or just one?
No, just the data class.
Oh, okay. All right. It was a legitimate question. I did not really.
Yeah, so you're basically giving them memory space for a little bit more flexibility if you have other things in there.
Okay. And, oh, wait, I think we have another question.
I was wondering if you had a chance to look at time and space complexity of these three options.
I personally didn't go and dig into the time and space issues of it. What I am told, based on the people on the internet who have opined greatly about this, is the tuple takes up less space, and that performance is roughly similar across all of them, but some people have found the data class has slightly better performance. Any other questions? All right.
I can see if you wanted, like, if you were doing lat longs and you wanted, hey, I want to compare what's the distance between these two lat longs, you'd want a method for that. I don't know. I haven't done that myself, but anyway, cool. That was awesome. Hobson, you're our last speaker when you're ready. Hobson Lane is going to talk to us about, I should have asked how to pronounce this. Is it meilisearch? Meilisearch, an open source AI search engine. Meilisearch. All right.
French. I can never tell the French what to do.
Their language is not regular.
Indeed.
Yeah, you're on this side, right? Oh, no, you want this thing. You just.
I have I also have an HDMI.
Oh.
Whatever's easiest.
You want this one. Otherwise, it has to go through this thing.
Got it.
And then what's on there? You don't have audio coming out of here.
No, I do not.
Okay. Yeah, so the magic should happen here in a second.
Awesome.
Hey, look, it came up.
Let's
is
get
what it's
that.
supposed to be?
Need
Oh,
to
yeah,
pick
okay.
it.
It's working. You just have not
Two
very-
screens.
Yeah, you're doing two screens. Okay. I'll set it up here.
Okay. My slides don't have the. Oh shoot. Let's go here first. Let's go. Anyway, NLPA.org will eventually have these slides. If I can figure out how to get them formatted a little better. Now let's see if this works. I could probably make it a little better, but I think you can see that. Okay, big thanks to, I'm not sure what Boo Dia and Glenn Larson helped me a lot with everything. We're working on a drug discovery platform for a previous client of mine. It turns out there are about 100 drug discovery companies. They're going to go bankrupt in about a year, and one of them will make $1 billion. And so they're all looking for the best possible tooling to manage their knowledge. And this knowledge is laser focused on one chemical compound that they think might be able to turn into a drug if they just figure out how to augment it a little bit or change the reactions a little bit. So it's going to be about drug discovery and a package that I created called RDKit. It's based off of, now I've forgotten what the, oh yeah. So RDKit is the chemical properties Python package for discovering, for recognizing like how many electron gaps there are and how many hydrogen molecules there are, what the atoms there are, what the atom is at the end of the chain, whether it's a polymer or whatever. There's about 300 properties that it extracts from a chemical formula in RDKit. So I've created a thing called RAGKit, which allows the users to do RAG on chemical formulas and text about chemistry. meilisearch is a Rust package for a Rust crate, I should say, for search, and it's lightning fast. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it to work super fast on my laptop, but it's at least working. It's very finicky about how you set up indexes, as all search engines are. RAGKit is, I'll show you how to set it up. It's a Python package that I created yesterday when David told me I needed to make a talk. But big kudos to UV for making that super easy to build and publish a package. And I'll do a little demo of creating an index and indexing some documents from Wikipedia. So RDKit is for molecule formulas, like I've already said. Here, I could click on that, but no, I'm not gonna bother. I think I had it earlier in a tab. Yeah. So this is just a typical chemical formula. Notice this 300 to 600 here. That means that this little guy is repeated 300 to 600 times. And if there's one extra time or one less time, it changes how the whole molecule folds. You've ever heard of AlphaFold? It's trying to predict what this chemical formula will end up looking like in 3D. And this is what that particular one ends up looking like in 3D. Those dots, I think, are representative, or sort of like ellipses in the formula. You see dotted lines between bonds. It's showing that those sections are repeated. And so, looks like a miniature piece of a DNA molecule almost. meilisearch. So because it's Python, you have some and UV is in Rust. So it has, and they're both, Rust is kind of based on JavaScript. So, so the world has kind of coalesced on one set of commands that we tend to use to run a package, to build a package, to publish a package, and to add dependencies. And UV has made that lightning fast, lightning easy, and just in the same way that Rust has. So with cargo in Python, you would type UV run, and that would find your main script if you've defined one in your package and run it. In Rust, that would be cargo run. Same for cargo build. In cargo build, for UV, I don't think you have a build command. I'm not sure, but actually you probably do. But anyway, the two here that are in green versus black are whether you're doing a debug release or a debug build or a release build, a production build. And that'll just determine whether or not the debug breakpoints are in your code or not. And the debug source code links to your libraries are available to you. I don't know. So you can run a debugger on it. And so if you're going to run the debug, if you've done it cargo build, just straight up like I've shown there in black, then you're going to actually run the executable that's created during that build process. It compiles it all and creates a binary, in this case, meilisearch. And it's in a target directory. In Python, that would be the dis directory. And and it would be directly in that directory with a version number at the end of it, but because it's a wheel, because you have to install a lot of different pieces for it to work. But in Rust, it all comes in one file, one binary, and everything works. And then you would browse to the location where that particular service is hosted. In this RagKit project that I created, I put this first line on almost every one of my Python packages. What it does is it tries to find, it checks to see if there is a virtual environment already defined, and if there is, then it activates it so that you have that particular module and all its dependencies available to you. If it's not, then it uses UV to quickly create it. And this literally takes milliseconds. So it doesn't matter, because you have probably installed all the dependencies in some other place on your computer. So all it does is create a hard link to those files on your computer. That's all it has to do. It doesn't have to copy files, doesn't have to download anything. It happens super fast. And then I'm in my work on, I have this thing called, a command called work on in my bash environment, in my bash RC. And it runs, when you say work on, like if I said work on RagKit, it would find the RagKit folder on my computer somewhere in my code directory, and then it would run the script. And this script would then launch, it would activate the virtual environment, load my environment variables. In this case, that's really critical for meilisearch, because you need to set up a master key so that you can connect to it remotely and add documents, delete documents, and work with it with a master key. So that .env file contains my master key, and then you can run, and then it checks to see if it's already running or not. And if it is running, if it's not running, then it launches it with that target/debug/meilisearch command that I talked about earlier. And for those, does anybody know what the dot stands for? No, you don't get to answer. No, that is correct if it is followed by a slash. But if it's followed by a space, what does it mean?
Are you on a Mac?
No, I'm on any Linux-based system. This would work. It would work on a Mac. It would work on Linux. It would work on Debian, Ubuntu, you name it. Yes.
Source.
Yes, you got it right. I don't normally. I usually spell out source rather than doing the dot because of the confusion with the current path. But it wouldn't fit on the screen here, so already had to wrap the line. So I use dot in several places. And there's also some redirection of the output, and it runs it in the background, so as a daemon. That's all that is. And then once it's running, then you can access it using a bunch of functions I created in this RagKit file. So one of them, the first thing you need to do is you need to create an index. You can think of it as a table. It basically is, and the only thing that's required is each of these indexes will store a JSON dictionary. And a list of JSON dictionaries is basically all it is. And meilisearch puts as much as it can in RAM, and so that it can reach it fast. That could be my problem. I'm not sure why. It should all be in RAM, so it should happen instantly. It's called a memory map. But currently, something is wrong with my particular index. But anyway, this particular module has a global variable called IDX that creates that index if it's not already there. And you create this client, and this comes from the meilisearch package. You say pip install meilisearch Python, then that will give you an import of meilisearch where there's a client, and you just need to give it your master key and the URL that you want to hit, and it will exercise all those requests with the right headers and get you the right stuff back. So in this case, you create the index if it's not already there, and you keep trying until you have one. And you give it a name. In this case, I just called it RagKit. And then you can make some documents. This case, you need to, before you upload, obviously when you download a Wikipedia article, that's going to be HTML, or if you're lucky and you've used the NLPIA2, the Natural Language Processing in Action, second edition version of the Wikipedia package. So if you pip install NLPIA2-Wikipedia, you'll get a package that converts it to something that looks a little bit like Markdown. And that's what I've used here. But you then need to take that page object that you get from Wikipedia, and you need to turn it into a dictionary. And so this grabs all the attributes that you want out of it. And maybe I don't have the make dict. No, I don't. But anyway, it just grabs all the things like the title, and obviously it has an attribute called sections that it's going through. And so it's going to actually chunk it into sections. So a document is not the whole article. It's a paragraph within the article. And each of those paragraphs have metadata about what page it came from, like the URL, and the heading of that particular section, and the title, and any other metadata that goes along with it in that dictionary. And then once you've created that dictionary, then you can add some, once you have this function for making it into a dictionary, then you can add documents. And so I've just defaulted to going to Wikipedia and looking for any kind of article with the title that you've put in that front. If you don't give it a list of dictionaries, then it's going to assume that if it's a string, that it's going to assume that it needs to turn that into it needs to go down, use the Wikipedia package to download the text, and then break it up into sections and chunk it into sections. It's called chunking in RAG because meilisearch has been smart about, they have a hard-coded limit. They don't give you a gun to shoot yourself in the foot with. Most other databases, document stores will let the document be as big as possible, but in meilisearch, it's limited to 65,000 words, tokens, whatever those tokens are. And so does anybody know what a TF-IDF vector is, or a BM25 or Okapi BM25 index is? Anybody ever heard of those? Great. Well, do you know what TF-IDF? Do you know if any of those words in TF-IDF are? If you get one of them right, you get a book. Anybody guess what T stands for? What F stands for? Nope. Close. I just used the word. We're talking about documents and how to index them based on what? Yes. But unfortunately, it's not token. It's another word. It's a synonym for token. Term. But what's a statistician's word for count? That's what the F stands for. If you're going to count up the tokens or count up the terms, sorry? You got it. So you get a book, Drew. And term frequency, and then what's the D stand for? D frequency. And I'll give you a hint. I means inverse. So you can take the term frequency or token frequency and divide it by the blank frequency, the D frequency.
Jeremy online has it, but I assume he looked it up like a cheater.
No, Jeremy knows it. He actually listens to my presentations. So he gets a book too, but he's already bought one and read it and given me feedback about the bugs in it. Nobody wants to get a book? D. What are we working with here? These chunks are chunks of a document frequency. So if you divide by the document frequency, that's a better weight, and BM25 does an even better weighting of it. If you have a really long document, it divides it by another term. And so that's the kind of index you're seeing on Google search when you're looking for keywords. It determines how important the word is, both in your query as well as in the documents using that formula. Anyway, where was I going? It's created a document. Oh, basically, you can't make them too long, because they get really long. Then every word's going to be in every document, and you can't really distinguish between one and the other. And so it's a really good idea to have it in smaller chunks, so you retrieve the bit of text that's relevant to what you're actually asking about. Especially important for RAG when you have a limited context window and you really need to focus it on the important stuff, so it doesn't try to piece together a bunch of stuff in a big document to create a hallucination, basically. In order to keep it grounded, you really have to be very specific about what you want it to talk about. Otherwise, it'll go on forever about nothing that's meaningful. And that's what RAG stands for. Can anybody give me that? Great. I can't give away. I don't have that many books, so I've got one book left. I think we have 2 people that won books so far. So, okay, great. So let's do a quick demo and we'll call it a day or a night. What was that, Grant? Except there's a sun and there's not a sun. Let's see, where is my terminal? There it is. Okay. So I think David told us don't never name name a module within a package the same as the package, or an object the same class name as the package. So I have this thing called util inside a RAGKit, and where it contains all the functions that I need, and then you can use that to add documents or to search those documents. I've only uploaded 3 articles and chunked them. It's got like, maybe I can do something interesting. Let's see, get stats. Yeah. Does anybody know what key I hit in order to get it to autocomplete for me and give me those hints? Sweet. It's super valuable. Looks like I've got 69 chunks in the database, and I've got 0 embeddings. So you're looking at just a keyword, a TF-IDF index. None of these fancy vector search databases. But meilisearch recently added that about a couple years ago. So it can blend both actual spellings. For these chemical formulas, the spellings can be most important, so it's not too critical to have the embeddings. But for those images of those molecules, it might be. So we might create embeddings of those images that can be searched as part of this. meilisearch is a really good image search database as well as document search.
The tokens for those are much larger.
Oh yeah, we don't tokenize them in meilisearch. Whenever you just create an embedding, you create a vector database, a vector index, and so it will. You'll have some text description that goes like it could be as little as just the name of the file path, and then so the tokens is minuscule. It's the vector that, you're right, can be 300 or 1,000 dimensional, and it's a dense vector, but it's using the same indexing technique that's used by all the others, locality sensitive hashing, and one other HMS something or other is an index type that you use for these dense vectors. It works in Postgres. That's the same thing they use in Postgres and Elasticsearch and all the others. meilisearch is just a poor man's version of Elasticsearch. It's a poor man's faster, better version of Elasticsearch, because you can build it and host it locally. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. These customers of ours are very concerned about privacy. So obviously they're not going to be sending up their model, their information, because they got this IP that could be worth $1 billion. So they don't want to send it up to OpenAI and then have their reinforcement learning, human loop reinforcement learning people reading it that they're paying $1 an hour who can see this $1 billion worth of data and then and sell it to somebody. So contrary to their the policy of OpenAI and their contract with OpenAI, who cares when $1 billion is on the table? And you're stuck in Africa and they're exploiting you anyway. So you're going to do whatever it takes. And so if you really want to keep it private, you're not going to want to be sending it to a software as a service like OpenAI. That's called SaaS. There's another version called Virtual Private Cloud. You've probably all heard of that, where you set up a VPN. I think somebody was talking about that earlier. Where you set up a VPN to a cloud service, and you can be relatively secure if you do everything what's called encrypted and transport, encrypted at rest, and encrypted at and transport, then you're good, so that nobody can ever get to it. The other thing you can do is on-prem. So that's going to be one option that we'll offer. We can buy one of these framework laptops that Juan was just telling me about. He's pre-ordered one, and one of his friends already has one. They're these $3,000 framework desktops with a GPU built in, an AMD that's quite affordable, very powerful. 128 gigs of RAM integrated with the GPU, so you can host these models that have 100 billion parameters, and they still run and do inference, and you can even do training on those models and these relatively affordable desktops. So that's on-prem. If they want to put that in their closet and want us to help them maintain it, that's one way to do it. And then there's one last version of it that I haven't heard other people talk about, and that's what you're seeing today. It can be sort of a federated database or a knowledge base, and I'm calling it on lap because it's on your laptop. The database, the machine learning model, the Olama model, everything right on your laptop. And somehow we will have to have them communicate peer-to-peer if we want them to share knowledge, or they can just be all reaching out and indexing the same source, the Google Drive, the SharePoint Drive, whatever. They can just be indexing the same stuff and have it duplicated all across all their laptops. meilisearch is so efficient, you can probably afford to do it on lap.
The thing is like if you're, because of the domain the domain of this in chemistry, I would think like a ChatGPT type model would even work with that. But if you went with, because you don't need something as large as that. If you went open source and you get something chemistry specific, you could probably run it with just a few billion parameters. So if you go on Hugging Face and look for a chemistry model, and then let that, and if, the thing is, I don't know if there's one that does embeddings to create the vector.
Nice. I'll look into that. I need to talk to you afterwards, and we'll figure out something.
In terms of the hardware, another thing is Macs.
Yeah, the M1s and the Mac Studios. Yeah, but they're
okay. The Mac Studios, but there's a alpha project, and that I've been trying to test. So not just the Macs, but even the iPad Pros. The iPad also have chips in it.
we're not with 120 gigs of RAM and integrated with the GPU though.
Are you fine tuning or creating an LLM, or are you just running it?
Just inference. You can only get 1 token per second out of even a Mac Studio. So with this thing that Juan and I are looking at, we can get that and then some for a lot cheaper.
So what someone's done, what I see on YouTube with an alpha piece of software, and if you need to add, is that called Exo or something like that, where you can take an extremely large parameter model, and the newer Macs have Thunderbolt 5. So what they do is they get like a bunch of the smaller iMacs.
Got it.
Smaller Macs.
Yeah. I hate Apple, so I'm not gonna pursue that. So you and I can talk about it afterwards.
I mean, you can hate the technology all you want, but if you're trying to solve a problem here.
I can solve it better, faster, cheaper, and free and open source. And I'm preferring that way. But we'll talk about it afterwards. Just let me finish.
I was going to say you could probably do that without Max, because what he's going to do is one big thing with a bunch of smaller things. Right. So it doesn't have to be a Mac to do that.
It's a high performance computing network.
That's the only ones I know about.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't. That's the Hobson's anything.
So I just wanted to show you how fast it is to get search results. That was less than a second. Of course, it's a tiny little database. But, and then I don't even know what this results object contains, but it contains like 20 results out of the 69. So it's sorted, I think. I need to figure out what it is and how to index it. So let's check it out. And then, but this is how you'd interact with it. And it can, meilisearch in the demos you'll see online, and you can actually do it in the web interface. Normally, it will auto-complete for you. It'll help you think of search terms. It has a streaming API to meilisearch, so that you can, every character you type, you can get back a set of suggestions for characters that are in your documents that complete those tokens. It's a super powerful, fast system. So it'll get the most out of any hardware, no matter what your hardware is. So it looks like I got the hits. So let's check out the hits. See how many hits we got. I think it's going to say 20 because I didn't set any parameters, any options on that search. So the default must be 20, a page of 20 hits. Oops. Oh no, that's all the hits. Let's grab the top one and see what that one was. Maybe it's a list. Great, it is a list. Gives me the page ID, the URL. It did come from the sucrose page, and that was my question was about sugar and insulin, so that makes sense. Sweetener, honey, date honey. So yeah, looks like. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's all highlighted like that. It's probably put some tags around it to highlight the particularly important terms. If I displayed that as HTML, it'd probably be awesome. But that's how meilisearch works, and that's how you can use it with Python. And it's Rust is very robust. I've never had any problem running cargo run or cargo build, though I have started to learn a little bit about Rust. It's fun. It's a fun language. Any questions? Besides why I'm not using Mac. Yes, Grant?
So you have the idea of like, you said it's peer-to-peer where the models or like the data is like shared. What's the protocol behind that?
Good question. So Grant he's in my Python class at Mesa College. He just asked whether what exactly the peer-to-peer protocol is going to be. I don't know. There's a really good one for federating. If you had a bunch of people who weren't sure they wanted to cooperate and they were just getting together to do some research, you might use something like ActivityPub. That's what's behind Mastodon and all of these social networks. So you can just post, microblogging basically. So each of the documents would be in that sort of format. You can set up the ActivityPub to handle any kind of JSON object. So that might be a protocol that would make sense, whether or not we actually made it sort of a social network or not, but just having that's one peer protocol that I can think of. Otherwise, I have no idea. The best, I think, the simplest one that we're going to implement, the only one we're going to implement at first for the MVP before we get any funding, is going to be just a hub and spoke. So they're going to all be pulling from, well, actually not a hub and spoke, multi-hub and multi-wheel hub and spoke. They're going to all be pulling from wherever they're getting their data, like SharePoint, or they're sharing their data already, and they're probably copying and pasting links from the web and from a SharePoint drive, and so we'll just ingest those links. Everyone will duplicate the data, so that's not peer-to-peer. That's, I don't know, redundant. Yeah, exactly. Yes, the Git model. That's exactly right. What is that data model? Yes.
How do you prevent
how do I prevent circular references in this peer-to-peer network architecture? There's no chance of it because every document will come from a URL, and every URL that will be the ID of the document, and the chunks will be taken from the section titles that are unique within that document or that URL, and so the combination of those two will be unique, and if they aren't, then we just don't index it. I don't think we'll have a circular reference problem. But, yeah, Murphy's Law, I'm sure, will come into play. Anybody else? Great. Enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Maybe multi-master? They don't use that word anymore? I don't know. Well, thank you, Hobson. And thanks to all of our speakers. So thanks to Jorge and thanks to Amy. I will also want to thank Cloudflare and Qualcomm for having us. And that's the end of the meetup. So just make sure you don't show up on the fourth Thursday. You should be eating turkey or something, whatever you want to do, however you celebrate, which could be nothing. But don't show up on the fourth Thursday. Check the meetup page and make sure you show up on the right day. Thanks for coming to San Diego Python. That's our meetup. All right.
I have a